You know, one of the things that people forget as we get closer and closer to free agency is that we can sign players that get cut. Because once players get cut, they are essentially free agents. Welcome in, Broncos country, to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose, and on today's episode, I'm going to talk about some of those roster cut candidates that I believe the Denver Broncos could explore if they are released by their potential teams. Now, before we get going, there are some important offseason dates that you need to be aware of. Obviously, the big game coming up, Super Bowl 60, is this coming Sunday, and then waiver period opens the day after that. So we will start to see news trickle in here between February 9th and, of course, the beginning of the new league year, which is March 9th. So a lot of important dates coming up here in the next coming months, or three, if we count free agency and the draft. So on today's show, like I said, I'm going to give you 5 big-name cut players the Denver Broncos could sign in the event that the team that currently holds the rights to that player decides to move off of that player. And believe me, there are some massive names on this list. Now, before we do that, I didn't believe it was possible. I can't believe we have gotten up to 932 Insta followers. All I need is 68 more to hit 1,000. So if you haven't followed me on Insta, my handle is Moose_NFL. If you want to go give me a follow, I have all of that in the comments and description of today's video. And make sure that if you're not subscribed to the channel, that you subscribe right now. Before we start, like I said, though, all these players are predicted to get cut by Spotrac. So these are not cut candidates that Moose just pulled out of his ass. No, these are Spotrac, which is an NFL cap site that basically says here are the biggest cut candidates for each team. They list the Broncos, they list the Falcons, they list the Arizona Cardinals, etc., etc. So without further ado, let's get into some cut candidates that the Denver Broncos could sign. Let's start with Darnell Mooney, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, speaking of the Dirty Birds. And Darnell Mooney had a very down year this year compared to what he did in 2024. The main reason for all of this, by the way, is because Darnell Mooney spent majority of the year injured. But the main reason that he would end up getting released is because, one, his productivity wasn't that great, and two, he's an $18 million cap hit that you could get $7.5 million in savings if you decided to release him early out of his contract, which ends in 2027. And if we take a look at the 2025 numbers, like I said, these are not good. 32 receptions, 443 yards, 1 touchdown. His average is still pretty good, so when he does make plays, seldomly this year albeit, he did have some sort of splash play effect. But like I said before, he dealt with multiple injuries this year, which led to lower production. There was a shoulder injury, and there was a leg injury, and a hamstring injury. It was just a bunch of problems from start to finish, week 1, throughout the entirety of the year. But if you remember what he was in 2024, I almost said 2014. If you remember what he was in 2024, where he played pretty much the entire season perfectly healthy, 64 receptions, almost 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, averaging 15.5 a pop with a long of 49, Darnell Mooney seems to be a very, very good wide receiver 3 option. A very solid wide receiver 3 option. Now, I know the Broncos and the Broncos fans will all tell me, we don't need a wide receiver 3. We need a wide receiver 1, a true dominant wide receiver 1. And you got me there. I can't argue with that fact. I would much rather go after a guy like George Pickens. However, in the event that the Broncos don't want to spend a lot of money or find that they want to spend money elsewhere, Darnell Mooney could be a nice cheap option to sign if he gets released by Atlanta. Let's move on to my second cut candidate signing. Tremaine Edmunds, linebacker from the Chicago Bears. Now, Tremaine Edmunds is a player that has had a little bit of an up and down tenure with the Bears, but I do believe he's got loads and loads of talent still left in the tank. But he is a $17 million cap hit, and the Bears would save $15 million if they cut him. And this, by the way, is a guy that got 112 tackles this year. He's really good against the run. Not as great at dropping back into pass coverage, and he's not a pressure player. So he's not going to be a guy that goes and sacks the quarterback. But what he will do is play the run, he'll survey the middle of the field, and he'll make tackles over the middle of the field between the line of scrimmage and that 10-yard marker. He is a great replacement for Alex Singleton if Alex Singleton decides to leave. And I love Singleton. I think based off of what he went through this year with the cancer diagnosis, I think that re-signing Alex Singleton would only behoove the Denver Broncos. But in the event that Singleton wants to go and explore more money, or if he's just like, hey, I feel like maybe I want to spend my time elsewhere in 2026. I don't know. I'm not Alex Singleton. Tremaine Edmunds could be one of those players that, if released by the Bears, would add plenty of talent to Dre Greenlaw in the Broncos depth chart. Now, remember, Justin Stranad is also a free agent. So what if you had signed Alex Singleton and you signed Tremaine Edmunds? That would be the biggest upgrade over a guy like Justin Stranad, because then you'd have basically three Pro Bowl linebackers all on the exact same team, and I think that would just be stellar. But the question is not, should we sign Tremaine Edmunds? The question should be, should the Broncos add a linebacker in free agency? I'm inclined to believe that I lean more towards the draft in this question right here, but I don't know that I necessarily am against them getting a linebacker in free agency. All I know is I would lean more towards the draft. Either way, let me know down in the comment section down below. Got plenty of more names coming up on this list of players the Broncos could sign if they get cut by their current team. Now, before we explore those names, I got to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. We are counting down the days, my friends, until the big game, which is almost here, and there is no better way to cash in on America's biggest sporting event than with Prize Picks, where it is always good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it is your last chance to get in on all the football action before next season. So, close out the year the right way with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. They got a brand new feature alert, by the way. Prize Picks now has early payouts, meaning if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Speaking of lineups, you got a max discount play. Drake May over half a passing yard, and Moose did you a favor. He already put it in his lineup. And if you want to copy exactly what I've got right here, you can. That's the great thing about Prize Picks. You can copy my lineup. You can make your own. Doesn't matter how you play. Just play with Prize Picks. So do me a favor. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. Our third player that we could sign, Logan Wilson from the Dallas Cowboys, another linebacker here. Now, Logan Wilson is an interesting player. I thought that when the Cincinnati Bengals traded him to the Dallas Cowboys and only got a 7th-round pick, I was like, for a player like Logan Wilson, the guy is a ridiculously talented linebacker. And the Cowboys will most likely get rid of him. It costs $0 in dead cap for them, so it doesn't have any effect on their current cap situation. And if they do release him, they could save $6.5 million. So this is a prime candidate for getting cut by the Cowboys, or Cowgirls, if you like making fun of them. But let's go back to that trade again real quick. This was before the trade deadline. Logan Wilson gets traded from the Cincinnati Bengals to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 7th-round pick. Now, for a player who's got that much talent, I thought the Bengals got hosed. And then I realized, okay, maybe they saw something that we didn't see, because last year Logan Wilson was kind of a non-factor at the line of scrimmage. No tackles for loss, no sacks, and a run defense grade that was actually decent, so we can wrap up pretty well. He had an 80.4 run defense grade, but 70 tackles, not quite what we're looking for with 15 games played. And he did play 40% of those snaps in a run defense set, meaning what? You're not playing nearly as well at the line and stuffing the run as you would like to see from a linebacker. But the odds are that when he gets released, Logan Wilson could end up making a very, very nice addition to the Denver Broncos, only in the event that you sign him for a really cheap deal. I wouldn't give him a multi-year contract worth whatever you're paying a guy like Dre Greenlaw. I think this is more closer to the vet minimum than anything. Let's go to Brandon Aiyuk, another big-time, all-star name here for the Denver Broncos. Aiyuk, notably, has some attitude concerns. John Lynch said himself that Brandon Aiyuk will not play again for the San Francisco 49ers. So essentially, he's going to be a free agent. Now, if we just take a look really quickly at Brandon Aiyuk's production over the last couple of years, you will see a player that has star potential. I don't know that he's ever going to be a true dominant one, but he could always be like a 1A or a 1B. And I think what you'd be getting is essentially somebody that gives you Cortland Sutton-style productivity in a player like Brandon Aiyuk, but he comes with a massive price tag. Now, again, you could make your own deal if you wanted to, because that deal no longer is, in effect once the San Francisco 49ers cut him. But if they designate him as a post-June 1st cut, they only eat $8 million in dead cap and $6 million in cap savings. So this almost guarantees a post-June 1st cut for Brandon Aiyuk. And like I said, there's a lot of talent there. There are moments when Brandon Aiyuk goes out and you go, he's the best player on the field. It's not even close. And then you hear more and more coming out from the San Francisco 49ers. He demanded that massive contract. He took San Francisco all the way down to the very end. They give him the massive contract. Then he misses time with injuries, and it's just been a disaster since he put pen to paper. With that being said, though, it is entirely possible that the Broncos explore Brandon Aiyuk and give him another shot. So if you would, do me a favor and smash that thumbs up icon. I would smash that thumbs up icon because I love the content. I don't know that I am the biggest fan of Brandon Aiyuk. Sure, would I be happy if the Broncos signed him? Yes, because of the talent alone. I don't know that the locker room fit is as good as it should be. And I'm even saying that with a guy like George Pickens, who I think is just more temperamental than he is an actual cancer in the locker room. And that goes all the way back to his days in Pittsburgh. Speaking of, our final cut candidate that we could sign if they are going to release him, Jonnu Smith. Now, this is probably a lot lower on my wants list, only because Jonnu Smith has kind of fallen off a cliff. $3 million dead cap hit for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they release him, but they save $7 million. So it clearly is beneficial for them to move on, considering they've got Pat Freiermuth over there as well still. So Jonnu Smith almost exactly feels like a player that Pittsburgh could part ways with. And as a tight end, the Broncos could always use extra tight end help, but 17 games played this year, my friends, only 38 receptions for 222 yards. He averaged 5.8 yards a reception. It's not good enough. But if you were to keep Evan Ingram and bring in Jonnu Smith as almost kind of like an ipso facto distractor role, then maybe Evan Ingram carves out a bigger role. Because outside of Evan Ingram, name the next Bronco tight end that has a huge role in the offense. It's Adam Troutman or, Nate Adkins if you want to consider him. So Jonnu Smith could be an upgrade to all of those guys, and Evan Ingram then by default would have a larger role in this offense. But that's only if the Broncos decide to keep Evan Ingram, because there are rumors that they're going to cut him as well. Smith is limited at this point in his career, so I would only bring him in for the vet minimum, and that would be about it. So out of those 5 names, if there's anybody that you would definitely bring in, I'd be very okay with bringing in Mooney. I'd be very okay with bringing in Tremaine Edmunds. Logan Wilson and Brandon Aiyuk, you could maybe convince me. I don't know that I would want Jonnu Smith. But those are just some names that are bigger, that the Denver Broncos could explore if they wanted to. Final push one more time. We are almost at 1,000 Instagram followers. I've never hit 1,000 Instagram followers on anything. There, producer Gage. I've never hit 1,000 followers, I think, on any social media platform. So do me a favor if you want to help me reach my goal. It's only 68 away. Make sure you hit that follow button over on Insta. Subscribe to the channel today. Don't forget to like the video. And as always, Broncos country, mile high salute. Be cool.